This episode of Project Used Bikes is going to be a little bit different. I love making these videos, but I want to improve the quality a bit and bring some more people into them. And to that end, I'm going to be calling this series the Used Bike Vlogs from now on. Also using a slightly better camera. This time we're taking a look at the kind of bike that you find rusted in your shed or buy for $10 at a garage sale. I'm going to walk you through how I did a basic restoration on it, so basic that you can do it at home if you're handy. I'm not doing a perfect job here, I'm just making it so it's a pleasant bike to ride. After that, Brianna's back to give me an independent opinion on this vintage bike versus her modern bike. So this bike is from before mountain bikes were a serious category, so it's a 26-inch Cruiser BMX is the closest thing to a mountain bike from back then, kind of. Existed, but it wasn't a fully fledged bike category yet. It's, the older brother to mountain bikes, basically.
The pedals just are so old, I feel like those are pedals that I had on bikes when I was little.
It was cork bar tape.
Would that have been made on there at that time, you think?
No, that was put on late. This was definitely put on later by one of the owners, maybe the original owner, maybe the owner after, but someone before my dad.
What was that for?
Just extra comfy hand position, I guess.
Would that have still been comfy enough for riding, you think?
Depends who was riding it, I guess.
So what's your guesstimation on how old this bike is?
Open and focus here. I'm thinking early 80s. Before I do any research, I'm gonna guess 1982. I guess.
See if you're right.
This is my dad's old bike. It's been sitting unused for years, it's covered in rust, and at first glance, it's not even worth fixing. But the beauty of these older bikes is that they can usually be revived with time and effort, and rarely do they need a ton of new parts. They may not perform like modern bikes, but older bikes are built to last. The first step of the restoration is tearing down the bike so you can see what you're working with. In this case, the bearings ran surprisingly smooth, so they didn't need to be repacked, but the cables and tires were shot, and there was a lot of rust. After sanding off the big nasty chunks of rust and the rough edges where the paint was chipping, I gave it a few light coats of paint. I don't care about a little bit of overspray because I'm trying to make this a daily rider instead of a perfect restoration. I'm not even bothering with primer or clear coat, but using both might be a good idea if you're doing a restoration like this. Once the paint dries and cures, it's time to untape all the covered areas of the bike and reassemble it with fresh tires, tubes, and cables. The pads on this bike had plenty of life left in them, but a lot of older bikes will need pads too. So from what I've been able to find, this Fuji Cruiser is actually from 1983. After a paint job and a serious tune-up, it runs pretty much like new. I've been cruising around on it, and I find it super comfortable, and it feels quick as long as you are just cruising around, but it's not designed to be pushed hard, so it really shows its age once you get going fast, especially in the shifting department. But I enjoy weird bikes more than I should, so it's time to reintroduce the amazing, the beautiful Brianna for a less eccentric opinion on it. If you've seen previous episodes in this series, you'll know that Brianna's bike is fairly basic, but it's modern and it's from one of the best brands in the industry. We planned out a short route through the neighborhood around Cyclepath, and we ran it with her normal bike just as a baseline for this test. You know, we gotta have some level of scientific accuracy here, right? Next, we ran the same route with the Fuji. We tried to make the route a good representation of what the bike is going to be used for. A little bit of side streets, a little bit of parks and pathways, and a little bit of light trails. Nothing crazy, just a fun, casual ride. First, what were your first impressions of this thing?
This is super chill, which I liked. It felt like I was just kind of like cruising around, hanging out. Wasn't as like aggro as like going on the trails, so that was cool.
Downsides to it? Because, you know, it is like 30 years older than your bike, so I'm sure there are some downsides.
Downsides, it's a little creaky. Sometimes it'll creak and that's a little terrifying. So I'm kind of hoping it's not going to like break on me. Turning, it turns very aggressively, which makes me feel like I'm gonna fall. So like the steering is a little bit wobbly. It's not like my other bike is. I don't know what the word for it is. I'm not a cyclist.
Well, it gets the point across pretty well. Is it just it turns weird, which yeah,
Yes.
it turns really weird. I couldn't quite put my finger on what's weird about it either.
I explain things for people that aren't cyclists. That's my explanation.
So I guess the big point of all this is, if that had been your first bike, would you be happy with it, or would you want to change up for something more modern?
I think I would have been happy with it because it makes me feel like I'm in like, I don't know, like the 20s, 60s, I don't even know, just like chilling. I feel like I have those like pinups, like I feel very, you know, antique with the bike, so I would have been happy with it because I wouldn't have known kind of the pros to my bike that I have, that I usually use, like a newer bike. But this I wouldn't have liked on the trails, I don't think, because it's just more like chill. I feel like I couldn't like go with it and like keep up. I feel like I'm very slow on it. which is kind of a bit of a downside because I like to be faster than you.
You manage it most of the time.
Yeah.